Hi guys, so this is a follow-up to my Titan T3 folding rack video that I posted a few weeks or months ago. I've gotten a couple of questions, so I'll try to answer them here. This is the 21-inch version, and I installed it in a side-facing wall which slopes downhill. It slopes toward, basically it goes this way, and I'll use this to illustrate a couple points that were a couple questions that a few of you had. So first question was, does the width of it bother me? So this is the width. You could see here toward the end of the J clip to the opening is about 48 inches, and this is a standard width bar. And so you've got 1.5 inch on this side of the bar and 1.5 inches on that side of the bar. So if that spacing bothers you, then you need to find a different rack. For me, this works fine. I don't have a problem re-racking it. I don't take a bunch of steps back. I step back maybe 1 or 2 steps, and then I guide it in pretty carefully. So honestly, it hasn't bothered me at all. So that's point number one. Point number two, had a couple of questions about the shims, or using shims to make this a functionally folding rack, and that is certainly something that you can do. Here's why I didn't do that. First of all, the folding capability of it wasn't that critical to me, but just to illustrate a point here, and so you could see how, sorry about the mess here, just continuously reorganizing. So the rack itself, the bar here would be parallel. We have about, that's not gonna work. There's about, I measured it before, there's about 1 inch of drop on my garage floor from that side, 48 inches to here. So if you're planning on making this a functionally folding rack, you need to know how much of a drop it is, and you'll need to figure that out by using this a level and measuring the horizontal distance, level it horizontal and then measure the spacing on the bottom. And that's how much shim you'll need. And so as this side folds in, it will tend to run, it will run uphill. So up here is the lowest point that you'll need to measure to for this side. This side, because it's running downhill, will fold perfectly fine. And then when you open it, it will rest on the floor. To me, I am not using this garage as a functional garage. I didn't really need the extra 21 inches of space, and this is kind of a dedicated everything space. So the rack doesn't get folded. But if you were to fold the rack, or want to fold the rack, the easiest thing to do would be to raise the mounting locations, raise the whole thing up by the height of the shims that you're going to use. So if your slope of your garage is 1/2 inch or 1 inch, put your 1.5 or 1/2 inch or 1 inch thick shims underneath it on the bottom side. Put that one flat on the floor, and then make sure that as you mount it, the rest of your uprights are vertical, and you should be good to go. So, if I decide in the future that I need this this system to be foldable, the only thing that I'm going to do is, maybe move it over to that side a little bit and raise it by whatever the, the run, the height discrepancy is of the floor. So not that big of a deal. For me, it wasn't that important. For those of you that might need the folding capability, just raise it up by the run of the floor. In fact, you can kind of tell that board is flat on the floor. That is parallel to the world, and there's 1 inch height difference. The other thing to consider, and I rewatched the original video, initially the bottom bracket was going to mount up here somewhere. And the reason I ended up going to the bottom, initially I didn't want to drill into the concrete, into the foundation, but I had to because of these bolts. The height that I was going to mount, which was going to be up here, was right at the level that the J hooks and the safety bars were going to be when I was doing my benching. So when I bench by myself, I put the safety bar basically at my chest level in case I get stupid and have to drop the bar. And so I figured that out by putting this bench down on the floor and figuring out where that height was going to be. And unfortunately, that height turned out to be exactly where I wanted to mount the bar, so I ended up mounting it lower. No big deal, but something to consider if you do end up going with a safety bar or safety bars, and if you intend to do benching. If you're only going to use this for squats, then don't worry about it. Okay, so that's it. If you want to use this as a folding rack, raise it up and use the height of the shims to determine how far you're going to do it, and it should be no problem. The other thing you'll see here, the bolt is the permanent attachment, but the wood screws are the ones that are used to temporarily fasten it while you're lining things up. So those are, there are holes, 4 holes per bracket on the bottom here also, and up there, so that you can temporarily attach everything and make sure it fits. So something to keep in mind. Okay, have a good day.